Once upon a time, in a town not too far away, there lived a young woman named Gold. Before we continue, please consider subscribing to the channel. We have lots of amazing stories in stock for you. Now, let me take you on a journey that changed Gold's life forever. Gold is a young lady who lived a very simple life after she lost her parents. Her parents left a fortune for her before dying, so Gold was very rich. Gold had a fiancé named Daniel, of which she hid all her wealth from. Gold moved in with Daniel and his family. She was very hopeful and she imagined a life with love and acceptance, a family she never had since her parents passed away. Little did she know she was walking into a storm. Daniel's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Ben, along with his sister Amma, lived in a world where status defined everything. They saw Gold as an ordinary woman with no pedigree, but nobody knew that Gold's late parents left her a fortune as an inheritance before they died. This fortune left by Gold's parents remained a secret. It was a test to see if people valued her for who she is and not for her wealth. The first evening at the Ben's lavish house, Mrs. Ben eyed Gold from head to toe, her lips coiling into a snare. "So, you are the girl Daniel can't stop talking about. I expected someone more well sophisticated. Hope you at least have some skills in household chores." Gold smiled, choosing to stay silent. It was better than sparking an argument. Daniel, bless his heart, doesn't really know much about his family's snide remarks. He was always immersed in his work as the tech company, leaving Gold to navigate the choppy waters of his family's disdain. Amma, with her perfectly styled hair and designer's clothes, was the worst. "Gold, can you iron my dress for tonight? And oh, the kitchen is a mess. Clean it up, will you?" She said not as a request but as a command. Days turned into weeks and Gold became their unpaid maid, her hands more familiar with cleaning supplies than any tenderness from Daniel. Gold's patience was wearing thin, but she resolved to not let her wealth influence their behavior, kept her grounded. One day, as Gold was scrubbing the floor as usual, Mr. Ben walked in with a frown on his face. "Gold, have you seen my cufflinks? They are quite expensive. You know, be careful not to misplace them while you are cleaning." "I haven't seen them, Mr. Ben, but I will keep an eye out," she replied, trying to mask her growing irritation. As weeks turned into months, the charade continued. Daniel's family never missed an opportunity to remind Gold of her place. They ridiculed her clothes, her lack of refined taste, and her mundane background. Gold clung to her secrets, a silent rebellion against their superficial values. The real test came when Mr. Ben decided to host a grand dinner party. "Gold, you will help with the arrangement and please try to not embarrass us with your lack of social grace," she said mockingly. The grand dinner party, a supposed celebration of love, turned into a spectacle of Gold's life. Greatest irony, as she busied herself with the final touches in the Ben's luxurious living room. The guests, adorned in their finery, began to trickle in, each one of them a reminder of the world Daniel and his family belonged to, a world where appearances were everything. "You've outdone yourself, Gold. This looks almost professional," Mrs. Ben remarked, her voice dripping with faint surprise. Gold offered a polite smile, her heart aching with unspoken words. She wished Daniel would see through his family's facade, but he was lost in a sea of career, ambition, and technological innovations. As the evening wore on, the grand room filled with laughter and the clinking of champagne glasses, Gold stood in a corner, observing, feeling more like an outsider than ever. Daniel, her fiancé, was in his element, charming the guests with tales of his latest project at the tech firm. His success was undeniable, but his family's affection felt conditional, hinging on his professional triumph. Gold slipped out to the garden for a breath of fresh air, the weight of the evening bearing down on her, hidden by the shadows. She overheard a conversation that cut through her sharper than any knife. I must say, Daniel's choice in women is unexpected. She's quite plain. Isn't she the one of the guest? Oh, but you don't see the bigger picture, Mrs. Ben's voice followed, laced with a cunning. I had become all too familiar with Gold's simplicity. Her naivety is all a part of the plan with Daniel's rising in his career. We needed someone malleable, someone who wouldn't outshine him or question our ways. She's perfect for that. Gold's heart sank. Their words, sharp and clear, confirmed her worst fear. She wasn't a part of this family. She was merely a pawn in their game of social climbing. The night grew colder, the laughter inside now sounding hollow. Gold knew then that her silence had been shielded, but it was time to let it fall. The gold they knew, the one they thought they could manipulate, was about to change. She returned inside and Daniel was busy, entertaining, still the golden boy in his parents' eyes. Gold wanted to shake him awake, to open his eyes to the reality of his family's intention, but deep down, Gold knew he was caught in the same web of pretenses. As the party reached its end, Gold realized her journey with the Bents was nearing its ends. They may have seen her as a naive girl they could easily control, but she had a different plan, a plan that would unveil the truth and set her free from the chains of their deception. The night ended with polite goodbyes and hollow congratulations. Gold lay awake in bed, the moon casting shadows across the room. Daniel, not knowing the storm brewing in Gold's heart, slept peacefully beside her. But this story was far from over. Their laughter and condescensions will soon turn to disbelief. They say karma has no deadline, and the Bents were about to learn that lesson the hard way. Stay tuned for the next chapter of my story, where the masks of pretense fall away, revealing the true faces behind them. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. One fateful afternoon, the facade shattered. Gold had returned home early, hoping to surprise Daniel. As she approached the house, she heard the sound of laughter trickling through the air, a sound unfamiliar in the unusual somber Bent's household, creeping closer. Gold's heart pounded in her chest like a drum in the quiet of the night. Through the slightly ajar door, the scene before her was like a knife twisted in her heart. Daniel, her own Daniel, was entwined with a woman she had never seen. Her laughter echoing through the room like a cruel symphony behind them. Daniel's parents watched, their expression not of shock but of approval. A cold fire ignited within Gold, a mix of betrayal and revelation. She pushed the door open, stepping into the light. "Daniel!" Gold screamed. Daniel turned and looked at her, guilt written over his face. "Gold, this isn't what it looks like," he stammered, but his words were empty, void of truth. Gold turned to his parents, their faces a mixture of shock and annoyance. "So, This is the real plan, huh? Marrying your son off to someone who fits your grand design. Mrs. Ben, always quick to regain her composure, replied, Gold, dear, you have to understand this is for the best for Daniel, for the family. The woman, draped in luxury, her eyes void of any remorse, spoke up. Honestly, Gold, you should be grateful Daniel needs someone of his standard. You were just a stepping stone. Her words, sharp and cold, swelled around Gold, but she stood her ground. A stepping stone? Gold repeated, her voice laced with a newfound resolve. Daniel, now finding his voice, joined in. Gold, let's be realistic. You and I, we were never going to work. You don't fit into my world. His words were supposed to hurt, to break her, but they didn't. They liberated her. Your world? She echoed, a small smile playing on her lips. You have no idea about my world, Daniel. Turning on her heel, she left the house. Their calls of faint concern falling on deaf ears. The life Gold had built, the love she thought she had, crumbled to dust. But from the ashes rose a new determination. In the following days, Gold moved like a shadow, gathering every piece of evidence of Daniel's infidelity and the financial deceitful schemes, bank statements, incriminating emails, photos, every single thread. She duplicated them. Night after night, she compiled her findings, each document a testament to their betrayal. Daniel continued his charade, unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon. The time for confrontation had passed. Now was the time for action. A plan began to form in Gold's mind. A plan to expose their true faces, to strip them of their pretenses and reveal the ugliness beneath them. She sat at her desk, the evidence laid before her, a chessboard of deception and truth. The Bens had played their games well, but they had underestimated their opponent. She picked up the phone, dialing a number she had kept hidden away. It was time to make her move, to bring the curtain down on their performance. The days of being the naive girl they thought they could control were over. This is Gold, the woman who had silently endured, who had watched and learned, and now it was her turn to teach them a lesson they will never forget. Stay tuned for the next chapter of this story, where the mask come off and the true colors are revealed. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. The morning sun peeked through the curtains, casting a golden glow on what would be the last day in the Ben's household. As Gold packed her belongings, a sense of liberation filled the air. Today, Gold will shed the skin of the oppressed and rise as the avenger of her own story. She walked down the grand staircase, each step echoing the resolve in her heart. The Bens assembled in the living room for their morning tea looked up in surprise. Gold, what's this all about? Mrs. Ben asked her. Mrs. Ben, Gold said. She began, her voice steady and clear. I am leaving, but not before you know the truth. I am not the poor naive girl you thought you could control. I am Gold Meyer, the only heir to the Meyer's fortune. The room fell into a stunned silence, their faces a canvas of shock and disbelief. This would have been comical if not for the gravity of the situation, as Mr. Ben finally muttered, his usual arrogance replaced by disbelief. Yes, and I have no intention of being part of this family any longer, she continued. Daniel, your little escapade has cost you more than just a fiancé. Speaking of Daniel, his latest fling, who had been lured by the pretense of his wealth, didn't take the revelation very well. You are broke. You lied to me. She spat out, her voices Shrill with betrayals, without another word, she stormed out, leaving a flustered and abandoned Daniel in her wake. But that wasn't all over. The past few weeks, Gold had been meticulously gathering evidence of the bank's illicit financial dealings. With each document, each piece of evidence, their tower of lies grew taller, destined to collapse. And it did after Gold's dramatic exit. She made an anonymous call to the authorities. The evidence she provided was the final nail in the coffin of the bank's pretentious life. The news of their downfall spread like wildfire. Social humiliations was swift and unforgiving. The elite circles they once dominated turned their backs on them, leaving them to wallow in their newfound infamy but social ostracization. That was the least of their worries. The authorities, armed with the evidence, launched a full-scale investigation into their financial misdeed. The once proud bank's name was now synonymous with fraud and deceit. Gold, sitting in her new apartment, free from the shackles of their oppression, watched as their empire crumbled. She felt no joy in their suffering, only a deep sense of justice served. The bank, who had once looked down upon her, were now facing the consequences of their actions. Their world, built on lies and manipulations, had unraveled, leaving them exposed and vulnerable. Gold had not only escaped their clutches, but had turned the tables on them. She had taken control of her narrative, and in doing so, had written their downfall. This chapter of Gold's life with the banks was closed, but her story was far from being over. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed our video, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Till we see you again in our next story. Goodbye.